Okay, welcome to the introductory part of Guinea Pigs, Humans and Carrots, Biochemistry Lecture 10, which will only be produced in this YouTube format. Okay, I'm going to start off with a question. What do we have in common nutritionally? Reading round clockwise, there's a guinea pig there, a fruit bat, a couple of examples of primates, there's a human and a chimpanzee baby, and also an Indian songbird called the red-vented bulbul. So what nutritionally do we have in common? We've probably got a lot of things, I guess, but the one thing I want us to focus on is this: we can't make our own vitamin C. And now, most species can biosynthesize vitamin C, including about 4,000 species of mammals. We're part of a relatively small group that can't. In general, the group which we belong to, the family which we belong to, the Arthropoda suborder of primates, which includes monkeys, chimpanzees, gorillas and Homo sapiens, can't synthesize their own vitamin C. So we've got some examples there. We've got a white-faced capuchin monkey, which is native to Costa Rica, a Barbary ape, which is found in Morocco and Gibraltar, and a gorilla eating an ice lolly. Why is a gorilla eating an ice lolly, you might ask? Well, probably because he wanted to. The scientific name for the lowland gorilla is gorilla, 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 which seems a bit redundant, but I have a theory it's just someone screaming gorilla and then running away. Maybe not. There's a lot of people around. A mere 12 years ago, there were 6 billion people in the earth. According to the UN, we passed 7 billion towards the end of last year. Other estimates suggest we're a little bit below that. The US population clock suggests we're a little bit below 6 there. But if you notice the 574 on the end, I'll just update this. And in the time it took me to update, we moved up to 603. Update again. 618. Human population is growing continuously, and none of us can make significant quantities of vitamin C, which brings us to the essentials of nutrition. This is the Eat Well plate, which many of you may well be familiar with. It shows the different types of foods we need to eat in what proportions to have a well balanced and healthy diet. You'll notice that one of the two biggest segments is for fruit and vegetables. They contain lots of macronutrients, such as carbohydrates and water and fibre, as you might expect. They also contain many important micronutrients that we can't make ourselves, the so-called essential nutrients. Whenever I talk about this, I have to bring in Jurassic Park and velociraptors, although the animals in the films were probably Utah raptors. Which doesn't sound as cool. One of the ideas in the film and the books was that the velociraptors and the other dinosaurs couldn't escape the islands because they were lysine dependent. That is to say, they had to have the amino acid lysine supplied to them. Well, all vertebrates are lysine dependent, including Mr. Spielberg and presumably, when they were still alive, velociraptors. So it is an essential nutrient, among others. Minerals are essential. We obviously can't make elements de novo. Some amino acids include lysine, others such as methionine. A range of vitamins and a few essential fatty acids, which we talked about in the video series on the Journal Club video series, part 1. Vitamin C is water soluble. Now that means that we can't store it, unlike, for example, fat-soluble vitamins such as A and D. It's got a wide range of roles. There's its structure and its proper name, levoscorbic acid. You sometimes also see it called ascorbate. If you don't have it in your diet, a number of problems will develop. One key role of vitamin C is in the synthesis of the connective protein collagen. Extended vitamin C deficiencies, such as was seen historically in long sea voyages, results in scurvy. And there's a scurvy dog. We'll come back to the scurvy dog later on. In fact, in the next section we'll look at how our understanding of vitamin C developed from folklore to science. And in the course of this we'll meet a famous tea cider, an eminently quotable Hungarian, and learn of the brutal murder of one of the greats of British nutrition. So why can't we make it? there's the biochemical pathway of vitamin C. It's well understood, although it was only elucidated in full in 1998, and the regulatory factors which control it still have to be established. Now we can do most of this pathway, apart from this final step. Why this remains a mystery. Presumably there's some sort of evolutionary advantage associated with this, but we haven't come up with a rigorous argument for what it actually is. A number of possible theories have been suggested. One obvious possibility is that our hominid ancestors in Africa had fruit available year round, so there was an evolutionary advantage in not taking that final step. It saved metabolic resources. A perhaps slightly contradictory suggestion is that is associated with the fact that the need for vitamin C increases with age. In times of famine, mortality would increase in the elderly, so conserving resources for the young. So granny there, better watch yourself. Recent studies have suggested the loss of endogenous vitamin C might help with the range of stress-related genes and the regulation of those genes. So we'll discuss these theories in a bit more detail in later parts of this series. And then there's exploding stars. Maybe a gamma ray burst about 25 million years ago produced a mutation that deleted this gene. The gene responsible for that final step. Well, maybe. There's obviously a few problems with that hypothesis, and some of the others, it has to be said. Okay, although we're going to mostly talk about vitamin C, I want to talk about other essential nutrients as well. But before that, we have another question. Name that vegetable. What is this peculiar purple-looking thing? Probably haven't seen it in the shops, though they do occasionally appear, particularly in more high-end shops, I guess. It's a carrot. It's a purple dragon carrot, which is an ancestral carrot. It's a wild variety of carrot. The more familiar carrot has been selectively bred over hundreds of years to produce a bright orange variety, which is relatively high in a class of molecules called carotines. The purple colours of the ancestral or the wild variety is probably due to the relatively high concentration of a class of molecules called anthocyanins, which the food students will certainly be familiar with, because I'll discuss them in the food chemistry lectures. Wild fruits and vegetables tend to look very different from their cultivated varieties. The other image there on the right is of a wild banana, which most people will appreciate is very different to the product we buy in supermarkets. Okay, I mentioned carotines there. The most famous one is this molecule, beta-carotene, which you will notice is a hydrocarbon, and you'll also notice there's a long chain of alternating double and single bonds, which are responsible for its colour. It's nutritionally important because it's converted into vitamin A in our bodies. In the context of vitamin A and beta-carotene, we'll have a fairly wide discussion. We'll talk about the plumage of birds, what Hippocrates knew about liver and sight, why 1 in a million lobsters are blue, and why Phoebe from Friends isn't perhaps the best source of scientific information. Okay, this is a pink flamingo, which we're very familiar with. This is something which might upset the kids, but flamingos aren't actually pink. They're actually white. Their plumage is actually white. They only appear to be pink because they eat a lot of a particular variety of carotene in their diet, which turns their plumage pink. Many years ago, locals had a crisis when all of its flamingos turned white, so, cue weeping children. There's an aphid there. I've suggested it's very clever. It's not particularly clever, it's just an aphid, so its brain isn't very big. But it is a rare example of horizontal gene transfer from a microbe into a multicellular organism. In this case, the ability to produce carotenes was transferred from a microfungus in its gut into the aphid. Something quite remarkable, and it's the first time this was seen. Okay, plants. We talked about essential nutrients from our perspective. Plants have them for their own reason, of course. You can, broadly speaking, categorise plant metabolites into two groups: the primary plant metabolites, which are found in all plants and involved in a wide range of functions, including growth, development, reproduction, and there's a list of them there, which includes vitamins. Secondary plant metabolites are found in much lower concentrations. They have a wide range of roles, often involved in defence and signalling, including letting pollinators know when they're ready for them. Often done by changes in colour, such as for example in berries. Some of these plant secondary metabolites may have interesting roles to play in human metabolism. As yet we don't really understand this that well, and anyone who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something, so watch out for that. Okay, vitamins. Most of the vitamins we need are obtained from plants. An obvious example is vitamin D, which is synthesized by the action of sunlight and cholesterol in the skin. B vitamins tend to be mostly found in animal sources, making them a bit problematic for vegetarians and especially vegans. Vitamin B12 has an especially interesting role to play in human biochemistry and nutrition, which brings us to Dutch mothers, fat yellow mice, and a famous sheep, and also a famous actress. You out, you eat is a cliche. It turns out to be true in a number of remarkable ways. Our understanding of this goes back to a study of a group of people who were in a rather unfortunate position at the end of the Second World War. In 1994, beg your pardon, in 1944, the Nazi-occupied part of Holland suffered under the hunger winter. Around 18,000 people died before the Allies were able to get supplies through. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, children born following the hunger winter were low in weight. What was more surprising was when they started to have children, these babies were also underweight. Our understanding of what was happening in these families led to the development of the concept of epigenetics, the idea that environmental factors can influence the expression of genes, not just in an individual, but in that individual's descendants. I've got a picture of some wheat there crossed out because I wanted to mention the fact that the study of these famine victims was also at least partly responsible for the identification of gluten intolerance. Like everything else in the introduction, we'll have a look at this in more detail in other videos in this series. There's a famous actress, Audrey Hepburn. She was one of the children of the hunger winter. Famously slim and elfin, she suffered from ill health all of her life as a consequence. There's a couple of mice there, which do look very sort of similar. One sort of orangey yellow and fat, the other one's brown and slim. They are in fact genetically identical. I'll say that again. They are in fact genetically identical. The differences in their physiology are another example of this idea of epigenetics, which again we will discuss in one of the later videos. In the next one we're going to look at vitamin C in a bit more detail, what it is, why we need it, and how our understanding developed from folklore to science. Okay, thanks for listening, and I will see you later.